everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of the HeartSpace podcast with myself, Jasmine, and my beautiful co-host, Alicia. So last week we were talking about the matrix system. So we just wanted to recap on that before we roll into our new topic this week, which is Hollywood and how it's been infiltrated, and break it down for you. Because it's such a heavy subject, we thought we're going to do it in parts. So we just want to give the foundation so the viewers understand how Hollywood was infiltrated and how symbolism and different agendas have been used within the movies we watch to control and persuade the masses. I just wanted to hand it over to Alicia, who's going to recap last week for us. Hey, girl.
Hi.
How's your week been?
It's been good. It's been really good, actually. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of recapping research, going back over the stuff that I was going, like back in 2020, I was going through it all, and I was just like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff now. I understand more now than back then, and it's like filling in the gaps, and I'm just like, wow. So with the matrix, entering the matrix system, so I realized that there's so much that I forgot to mention last week, and I think it's because it's that topic as well is so huge, and to really break it down, like honestly, I've got pages and pages of information that I've written all down, and it's like, wow, there's just so much to it. And it's funny, well, it's not funny, but it's just interesting how this matrix system, this world we live in, everything around us is connected to this matrix system, and everything around us is completely controlled. So as I touched on last week, we mentioned, how we have been born into this belief system, and we don't know any better. Our parents didn't know any better, because this has been going on for generations and generations. It's been going on for such a long time. So we think the world is one way, when really there's what we call a shadow government or shadow governments. There's like the darkness that's actually pulling the strings and creating all the chaos and controlling the masses on so many levels. So the media, we touched on the media last week, didn't we? How the media is controlled, and we went into Hollywood and how that has been used as well to control the masses.
As a psychological weapon,
it is.
Say. Yes.
Big time. And see, I didn't know any of the stuff before 2020, especially about Hollywood. Like, I had no bloody clue.
Same.
And so, I when I was finding out all this stuff, I was like feeling sick to my stomach, because it's sickening. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like my favorite artists, they're involved in it. They're in on this shit, and it's disgusting. So do you remember how you felt?
Yeah, I felt total betrayal. And because I was such a movie buff, I worked in a video store. Growing up, I was quite introverted, so I would love to just watch movies. It was my happy place, to get lost in a movie. So I just felt this big sense of betrayal, and I'm just like, what, like exactly like you, like, what the fuck? And then when you do your research, especially in the early 2020s, back then when we a lot of people woke up in 2020, essentially we had that 2020 vision come on. So it ties in with that. And we started going down the rabbit hole, and things were more accessible back then, whereas now the powers that be, the 1%, the elitists, whatever you want to call them, have taken control of the algorithm, and they've blocked a lot of this information to the public. But back when we I think we touched on this already, but back when we first woke up, the information was accessible. So what I was finding out through documentaries I was watching about Hollywood, especially the, what is it called? The Outer Shadows documentary, which I highly recommend to everyone to watch. I might actually share a link for that documentary down in the description for anyone that wants to view it, because it's such a great way to connect the dots. That's what I liked about the documentary. It helps you connect the dots from Hollywood to the CIA and so forth. And because as we unpack this episode, you will learn how the CIA has infiltrated Hollywood at some stage, but we won't get into that now. But just finding these things out for myself and putting the dots together and watching that documentary, it's like, wow, like, and you start to see the symbolism yourself when you start to watch movies, you know, and you start to, like I said, when I started connecting the dots and putting the research together and figuring out, okay, this is why they all do the one eye symbolism that we've all seen. It's very common, yes, and that one's another one. And it's just like, okay, why do they do that? You know, to us, we think it's cool. It must be like, you know, some pose, some celebrity pose that they all do, but it goes a lot deeper. And then you start to see that symbolism has been their biggest way of communicating with one another. So once you know the symbolism, you can unpack, you know, what they're trying to portray. And it's crazy.
Yeah. I think also their symbolism is a huge giveaway. It made me look back as well, because I used to love Lady Gaga. And I remember when she first came out, she had the, like this, and I think she had the lightning bolt.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. And then a lot of them do this, and then what's the other one, like this, because this is actually 666, which we all sort of know what 666 represents, don't we? I mean, exactly. It's satanic, it's evil, and it is disgusting. I use the word disgusting. It's sickening. The Out of the Shadows was really good because I was learning all the stuff, and then actually watched that doco, and it just it took me in deeper, but it just put everything on the straight and narrow for me, because I just had all this information scattered everywhere, and it just all aligned, and I was just like, oh, whoa. So yeah, if anyone wants to watch that, we'll drop the link below, but that is also on BitChute, and I've just started getting back into BitChute again. Like I stopped doing a lot of research for a good 9 months. Like I stopped going onto all these sites and stuff because I felt like I already knew enough. I knew like I'm aware of how the matrix system works. I'm aware of who's controlling us. I'm aware of the symbolism and all that kind of stuff. But jumping on this podcast has actually just made me want to dive back into it, and now I'm right back in there again. I'm on BitChute. I'm like lying in bed at night, like instead of watching programs like, you know, on Netflix or whatever, I'm actually going in and learning more stuff and going over things. Yeah.
And when you watch it back, sorry, what were you saying?
I think it's important that we do that. Like, you know, it keeps us well, for me, actually, it keeps me on that fight mode. Like, yeah, that's right. This shit, we're gonna expose this. I'm not gonna stop. Yeah.
It keeps that fire burning in you, because I was the same when I first woke up. I just wanted to get out there and tell everyone what is happening, you know, just wave the red flag to humanity, you know, wake up. Like, they're programming us, they're dumbing us down, they're poisoning us with our food. Like, we could go on all day. And, you know, essentially that's why I wanted to do this podcast, because the truth, I know in my heart of hearts, I don't want to sound arrogant or anything, that the truth is going to come out and people are going to be losing their shit when they learn how they've been lied to and deceived over these years. And I think it's important to have this space, to have this open dialogue where people can come to and hear about our journeys, hear about how we woke up, and be pointed in the right direction if they start wanting to look into what is the truth, what has been happening. And essentially the veil has been pulled over our eyes through many years, through living in a matrix system, which is, we've been raised to serve a corporate industry. You know, who owns these corporate industries? You know, and as you follow the bloodlines back up, it all leads to, it leads to a few people, a few very, very filthy, rich, wealthy families that could, you know, end, I should say, world poverty if they wanted to. That's how rich these people are, you know, but they don't, because they're hoarding all the wealth. And
they create the poverty. They create it.
Yeah, and this is not a conspiracy theory, you know. If you trace back these big corporations like BlackRock and Vanguard, it all goes up to the top. And the same is happening in Hollywood. So let's unpack it now. When you look at Hollywood, we are given the illusion of choice with all the channels that we have. You know, we have HBO, Netflix, Disney, Marvel. When you trace back, or even, I should even say, even the big news corporations, BBC, CNN, Fox News, even here in little old New Zealand, where somehow our media is also linked back to these bigger corporations. Without a doubt, MediaWorks would be traced back to one of these big corporate entities. So again, we're given the illusion of choice, but when you, like I said, trace back all these corporations, they lead back to one source, okay?
Yeah.
A lot of Disney,
I just want to put a name there. Rothschilds.
Yeah.
That's who pretty much started this whole thing, and this goes back to the banking system. And I will touch on that on another episode, because that's a big one. But when you learn what I will talk about, that is when you're like, fuck this, and you will stand in your power. You will want to stand in your power, and you will want to be like, no more. So Rothschild's big one. And their bloodline, and then it filters through. And it's funny how many people in power are related to the Rothschilds.
That's another one. And the Rothschilds too, that all links back to the Freemasons and so on. And that's where it's going with Hollywood too, where we're heading to with this conversation, I should say, with Hollywood, is the infiltration of it. So I know that during my investigations and research, especially, like I said, the Outer Shadows documentary speaks on how the CIA, just after I think it was the First World War, they brought out a document where they wanted to start testing motion pictures on US troops. So they would play these films to the US troops to help build their morale and get them ready for war. And so they were documenting, I should say, sorry guys, they were taking notes on how the troops would react after watching these movies. So essentially, they were trying to see the psychological effect these movies would have on the troops. So this is where the whole idea of infiltrating the mind started, of how much impact watching something can create someone's reality in some sense. Because as we were touching on last week, we consume so much content, you know, we don't even think about it. We don't really think about it because we're being entertained. You know, and if we break down the word entertain, what does that mean? It means to hold the attention of the people, to hold your attention. And when they're doing that, when they're holding our attention, and, you know, when you look at the movies that are out there these days with the violence, and, you know, a lot of it's packed with sex and drug use and people just being morally wrong to each other. Imagine if they started making movies where people were kind to one another and people were helping one another. And of course those movies exist, but
the big ones that come out, like they're full of it, all that other stuff. And I totally, it's funny because, like, I think it was my mum, she likes going back and watching the old movies because the old movies had morals and values and things like that in them, and like you said, the kindness, like like all that kind of stuff. There was, like, obviously there was, like, movies back then, like, you know, the cowboy movies and, like, all that kind of stuff, but, like, you know, there's ones that she likes to go back to because it takes her back to her childhood, and, you know, it just brings that sense of, I don't know, what we see today is just fucking shit. It's shit. Like, there's it's all the same shit, really. There's nothing that sort of, you know, that's put out there that, hey, look, you know, nice loving family, nice, you know, blah blah blah, whatever. Like, it's you've just got, like, movies where it's about love, cheating, murders, drugs, as you said, violence. The violence is insane. And then you've got in the last, like, I think more so like the 90s, 2000s, you've got movies that are sort of action based, maybe a bit of sci-fi, I don't know genres that well, and then it's like all these robotic kind of things, like I don't know if you've seen that movie Lucy, where she has, it's that I don't know if it's a pill, I can't remember if it's like she gets injected with it and it actually, like, makes her stronger and, like, all this kind of stuff, and she kind of, like, goes from human, transhuman. Like, there's so much stuff in there that it's called predictive programming. So all this stuff, like all these movies, it actually, it's called predictive programming. It's programming the mind so that when our world goes in that direction, people are going to be desensitized to it and more accepting of the way that the world is going. Because I will drop this bomb, transhumanism is a big one that is on the cards, but we'll leave that for another day.
And it's evident with what's happening with all the robotic technology that is coming out, and how we're kind of sitting back and letting these robots infiltrate the workplace, you know, and take over jobs. And, you know, essentially that's where they want to merge us with machines. And, you know, once we become merged with machines, we lose that humanness. We lose our God, you know, like our connection with God in some source. You know, we don't need to be altered. We're perfect the way we are. That we're exactly as God, spirit, universe, whatever you identify with as your higher source. We're exactly what we're meant to be. And you've got to remember that these elites, you know, these globalists that essentially, you know, they are taking us into a new world order. That is not a conspiracy, you know. I tell everyone, go to the UN website, look up Agenda 30, it's all in there.
Yeah. So these celebrities, like these people that we see, the glitz and the glamour, the lavish lifestyle, so rich, like chucking money around, living large, living the dream, you know. These video clips that we see, I remember when I was younger, damn, I was always pretending I was in a video clip and stuff, because like I wanted that, like I just loved that. Now I can't even barely watch video clips because I can see all the symbolism. I can see what they're actually really singing and talking about, singing about. And it's these people these people are to be famous. I mean, what's the price to pay to be famous? You've got to sell your soul. These people don't just go, hey, you've got some great talent. Here you go. You've been number one on the charts for how long, ever long, blah, blah, blah. Look at Justin Bieber. Like, he started off when he was a kid, and he's still going hard and strong. And he's in the mainstream music, and he's still going hard. There's so many there that are still going for such a long time. But to do that, you've got to do things and able to have, like, a new single pop off and everybody love it. A movie, to get into like the real, like, the blockbuster kind of movies.
And this is evident too, because all you need to do is look at the whole Harvey Weinstein case and how, female actresses were exploited to get, roles within Hollywood. So people have to realize this isn't a conspiracy. There are Hollywood agents out there that are exploiting new talent. And if you don't push an agenda, if you're not willing to push their agenda, then you're not going to be as big as you are. You're only given that platform if you're ready to keep in line and push out what they want you to project to the main public. So
Hollywood is based on, and I'm going to say it bluntly, a bunch of fucking pedophiles. They are Satan worshippers, and there's CIA operatives running all the way through Hollywood, and it connects to the Illuminati. People think, the Illuminati is all shit. I used to think that. It's actually not. And the Illuminati was founded back in the 17th century, and I forgot his name, but I know it starts with an A, or his last name starts with an A. And he was placed in that position, I believe it's through Rothschilds, somewhere around there, so back to the Rothschilds. So, like, there's a price to pay. I mean, I like to sing, and I'm like, I'd like to be a singer one day, blah, blah, blah. When I found out about the music industry, I was like, fuck that. I would rather... I don't need the fame. I don't need the money. Like, I am good. And it's really sad that these people are so fucking desperate for that fame, for the money, and they are willing to literally sell your soul. And you actually, hear these, it comes a lot from the singers or rappers, they speak a lot about it. Like, you've got to be willing to do things that you never thought you'd ever do. Like, and other ones say, I literally sold my soul. Lady Gaga's even mentioned, like, about selling her soul. Like, this is not a conspiracy. This is like actual, they say it. And to sell your soul, who you're selling your soul to? Illuminati, Satan. And then they become worshippers, so to speak. But the thing is, they don't just get told this. So this is about Hollywood. They don't get told, hey, here you go, but you've got to do this. They actually drip feed it. So they actually, like, drip feed a bit of, this is what you could have. It's nice, eh? Yeah, you'd like blah, blah, blah. You could have this, this, and this. And then they give that bit to them. And then they literally, like, they're like, you want to do this, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay, let them do that. And then these people are literally thirsty for it because they're dangling the carrot. So they're already getting a taste of it. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then it gets to a point where it's like, okay, now, are you willing to do this? And to do that, you've got to basically, we own you. So what we say goes, and this includes, they have to do some pretty nasty, horrible stuff. And I'm saying, like, rituals, satanic rituals. I won't go fully into it on this one. We'll do obviously in other parts, but they have to do some really disgusting shit. And a lot of them have to go through, like, they're like initiations. So basically, like, I remember Machine Gun Kelly. I remember when he actually posed at one of the award things or whatever, and he was dressed all in pink like a woman, and had like pearl necklace or whatever. And that's what they have to do. They kind of have to shame themselves and actually prove themselves, like, oh yeah, I'm willing to do that and look like a fuckwit. And then it just shows it's their initiation. And if they go through with it, then, you know, and then usually when there's a shame type thing that comes out, boom, there's the next hit and it's popping, and then they get ultra rich off it. But not only that, so do their puppet masters or handlers, if you want to call them. Yeah, it's really bad. And I feel sorry for the children, the child stars, you know, the ones
that
Disney.
start off very young in the industry. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
Disney's one of the big players, you know. I think one thing that I learned from the Outer Shadow documentary is a lot of the Disney movies that we grew up with have hidden sexualized symbolism within it.
Yes.
I wish I could share, you know, some of the images. That's one thing we're going to look at doing is, you know, sharing a screen eventually so we can bring up articles and show the viewers as we go along. But in the meantime, you know, I just can't stress this enough. Go and watch the documentary if you haven't seen it already, and just let us know in the comments, you know, what you unpack for it, what you unlearn for it. Do you think it holds some truth to it? You know, because to me, essentially, it changed my life after watching this documentary, because I saw so many different things. And going back to my childhood, I was quite sexualized as a young girl. And then,
exposed,
you know, and I didn't know, like, I remember doing a talent quest with my friends. And, you know, back at the time I had no idea, but when I look back at it now, I'm like, I can't believe I danced like that. But some of the dance moves I was doing in a primary school talent quest, I'm like, oh my gosh, shameless. Like when I look at it now, but I look back at what I've been exposed to. And, you know, Disney was my babysitter growing up. When my parents were, you know, drinking with their friends, we were inside binge watching Disney. So essentially I was, you know, introduced to all this programming without knowing, you know. And then I see, like, I'm just like, maybe it's because I watched The Little Mermaid 20 times that, you know, I lost my virginity at a young age. It's just, you know, you downpack like that, and you can't help but to see things like that when you see the programming and how this world is created. And going back to what you were saying with the satanic agenda in Hollywood, because a lot of people find it hard to get their heads around that. Like, there is, if we break it down like this, in America, there are satanic temples, okay? So you can go to the Church of Satan, you can go and worship Satan openly, okay? So that is not a conspiracy. And when you know, unpack that, there are a lot of celebrities linked to these satanic churches too. You know, and so it's like, why are these people going to these churches? You know, you've got to question that too. And especially when you're on award shows thanking God, you know, a lot of them are all about, they have this image, like their public image of what they portray to the public is of someone that is caring about humanity, wanting to help world problems, just like Leonardo Dicaprio. He's another childhood star that I believe has been infiltrated into Hollywood and used in some sense to push these agendas, you know.
And he was abused. He was abused by their not directors, like their managers, like the you know, people on the set, like it you know, and so many children have been exposed to it, like, and you know what, sodomized, and it happens, and but they don't ever talk about it. I just want to touch on the reason why they never get this doesn't really get spoken about, because
they're all in on it.
And they are threatened. And I will say, so a lot of the famous people, they also are blackmailed in ways, which is there's a lot of man rapes man. Like, say, for example, I think that's happened to, it was Chris Brown. You know, so there's a lot of homosexuality in there, even though they might be straight. They do that to, is it the word demoralize? They do that to sort of take their manhood away, to control them, and also use it against them. And they also, there's like threatening to kill your family. Then the big, like another one is like, oh, well, there goes your career. Like this, you'll be blacklisted, like Mel Gibson. He's been blacklisted from Hollywood because he started talking out about all this stuff.
Yes.
And this stuff is actually available to find. As I said, like I was on DuckDuckGo last night, so it's like another search engine, just like Google. I know DuckDuckGo has been somewhat infiltrated, but you can still find the information on it, and there's freaking tons. There's tons of it. You just write in all these keywords, it will come up. So yeah, Mel Gibson blacklisted from Hollywood because he started exposing it. There's actually been there have been actually a lot of famous people that have tried to expose the occult, and it is an occult. That's exactly what it is. And there's been many famous people that have tried to expose this, and they mysteriously die. And we usually hear that it's been suicide, like Chester Bennington.
From Lincoln Park,
From Lincoln Park. Him and I think it was Chris Cornell were working on a documentary. They were putting evidence together to expose how all these people in power, including politicians, especially in Hollywood, how these children are being used, abused, they're being trafficked, all the pedophilia, all of that, and then they both die. Yeah.
Not a coincidence.
It's always, not a coincidence. And then there was, I think it's Isaac Cappy or something.
Yes, yeah.
The one with the really funky hair.
That's right, Isaac Cappy.
Apparently, he jumped off his balcony or something, a high-story balcony, and committed suicide. I believe he was thrown off it.
Yeah, because Isaac Cappy's a really good one. I'm glad you touched on him, because he started speaking out about Tom Hanks, openly calling him out to be a pedophile. And there have been women that have come forward, that they're now women, but at the time when they knew Tom Hanks, they were just young girls, I think maybe between the ages of 11 and 13. They all have their preferences in Hollywood too, these are leaders. And so Tom Hanks was taking weird photographs of like lost children's items, and he would put them on his Instagram. And there were actually hidden codes within the pictures he was taking to tell his celebrity friends, you know, what was happening, or like it could be like a red glove could mean like a little girl was up for grabs. Like they have all these secret ways of conversing with each other, you could say. And it goes back to this occultic, with the Freemasons, because they're all about the symbolism. They're all about the hidden agenda, keeping things in the dark from us. And so Tom Hanks was getting exposed, and he was exposing another actor, Seth Green, who was on the Austin Powers part of that whole franchise. He actually was really good friends with Seth Green, went to his home, and he saw some really weird stuff. Like they had the Moloch statue in their living room, like a little statue, and
big symbol.
Yeah, and a lot of these celebrities, when you go into their home, they have these occultic things, all this weird art that ties them in. Yeah, and it's all their way of hiding things within plain sight of what they get, so they can essentially let others know, okay, we're into this too, we're into this sick stuff too. That's how they use these different symbols and art and photographs. And so he was coming out with a story on that, with exposing different actors. And Isaac Cappy, for those of you that don't know him, he was in the Thor movie. I think it was the one that had, what's the New Zealand actor in it?
I wouldn't know. I've never even seen it before.
Yeah, I kept the Moldy. He did Boy. He directed and wrote Boy. That he directed the Thor that Isaac Cappy was in. Yeah, I can't remember either. But yeah, so there's so many different celebrities that have sold their soul that have really pulled the wool over a lot of our eyes. And like I said at the start, you feel betrayed. Like, you just feel betrayed, especially when you know the symbolism and you start watching music videos and you can see it's all in the set designs. Even when these people perform on stage, they have symbolism throughout their performances. And
what about that Madonna one? And she's got a patch on her eye, and then there's like horns, and there's like stuff in the background, and like even the lyrics she was singing. I actually have the video on my phone, and it was like, not all of us are going to the future, not all of us, all of you are going to make it. Blah,
I
blah, blah.
have seen that. Yeah, I do remember that.
And a lot of the one big symbolism is the checkerboard, and you see it a lot in video clips. Especially, I know that is it that what, or I know that Cardi B has a lot of checkerboard, Nicki Minaj, even in their clothing, the checkerboard, which is the Freemasonry. There's even certain outfits, like if it's, what do you call it, like leopard prints and all that kind of stuff. That's actually, I'll actually touch on that. This is everything to do with the mind control, MK Ultra programming. So so I know that the leopard print, and when they're wearing that and walking through like on the checkered floor, like they're in that sex kitten bomb, like kind of like sexual, trying to, it's like Marilyn Monroe. She was like another one, that sex kitten, So it's just all of the exposure. It's all in there. The symbolism is just rampant, and once you see it and once you know, there's absolutely no way that you can unsee it. And it's so there. And even in so talking about Disney, I know that that's a really big topic that we need to touch on. Even Alice in Wonderland, there is, when I think she's going down the thing, there's all the checkered black and white.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, because Alice in Wonderland is one of the biggest Disney movies that have, it's all double meaning. There's double meanings to it all. And I've written like subliminal in Disney. So many of the recent, I'm just going to read it. Many of the recent Disney movies and cartoons are used in a twofold manner, desensitizing the majority of the population using subliminals and neuro-linguistic programming, deliberately constructing specific triggers and keys for base programming of highly impressionable monarch children. So this goes down another sort of avenue where they're trying to, it's like they've got an eye on all the children. It's really freaking disgusting. So, because monarch, as you mentioned, the monarch butterfly, that's a huge thing, because you've got, I don't know if anyone else that's watching this has heard of MK Ultra, mind control, project MK Ultra, and that is the most disgusting. It's like mind-blowing, actually. I'm lost for words right now. That whole operation and what they do to people, children, it's heartbreaking. And the I think it was, the Project Monarch is trauma-based mind control. And that is what you see a lot of the celebrities. They are under the trauma-based mind control, and they go through hell. They literally go through hell, these people, but it's the children, because this doesn't just happen in Hollywood. This happens in the occult. This goes in, this is under the Illuminati. This is politicians. They go through all that stuff. I was reading last night that even doctors and nurses in certain hospitals, because these people in power need to have their hands in every little dimension, like they have to have the whole world covered. So they've got their hands in education, medical, so like in the hospitals and stuff. They basically have mind control doctors and nurses, not all of course, working in the hospitals, and they've got a certain agenda and a certain job to play out for the Illuminati, or the ones that are in control. So this is everywhere. It's in our media. So a lot, especially I've seen quite a lot of videos where you've got CNN and Fox, a lot of the news readers, what are they called? Mind blank.
Broadcasting.
Yeah, the ones who like
the reporters.
Pardon?
The reporters, or just the
reporters
anchors,
as well.
News anchor.
Yeah, so they are under it. Anderson Cooper is a big one. He's with CNN. He has linked his family bloodline ties into all of these corrupt fucking bastards. Like, honestly, he is a part of it. So a lot of them are MK'd as well, because they need to mind control these people so that they can actually push out the agenda for that little 1% that's at the top. And that is how you gain global dominance, is by literally having control of everything, having like your money invested in everything, and having and controlling pretty much everyone in these areas. I mean, they can't just like, they'd be able to get me to just do it, because like they'd have to actually program my damn mind. So
and a lot of these people, like you were saying with Anderson Cooper, that come from these elitist families, they've been programmed and groomed from such a young age to be in these positions and to protect their secrets. They all have to do something down the line where they've got something held over him. And that goes back to like Epstein's Island, when what the CIA essentially does is create honeypots throughout Hollywood. So one of the biggest ones was the Playboy Mansion, where they had hidden cameras set up and they would catch celebrities and other governmental officials in compromised positions, whether it be with an underage girl, and then they have some type of blackmail to use against them. And that's how people get trapped, and how they feel like they can't get out, or they get used for these agendas because they have, these people, these elitists have something on them. And going back to the MK Ultra, because that's another important topic that you touched on, because some people may know what it is, some people may not, but MK Ultra started all the way back in the Nazi World War, where the Nazis were experimenting on, the women and children from war, and that the whole concept of MK Ultra is wiping the mind clean and then reprogramming it. So by getting people to do these drugs and shockwave therapy, they are able to traumatize people and, again, like, split their personalities. We were just speaking about this before we jumped on. Split the personalities to the point where they're more impressionable, and then reprogram them with their agendas of what they want this person to be like, or to portray a certain image to the public. And it's crazy. Like, people think this is a conspiracy. There's documented papers within the CIA that they were doing this to unknowingly to people in the public. In America.
It was this CIA scientists, so they used, because obviously, how can you get someone to confess something when they are being interrogated. So they started like using, so experimenting. If we do this to that person, then fill them up on drugs, and LSD was a big one that they were using at the time. We reprogram and we can actually do this, but then it was like, hold on, we can actually do a lot more. And I've actually got the levels of the Monarch programming here. And it's funny because here's another dot to connect. They sound exactly like the names of sorority, whatever the fuck they're called in America in the universities. But then again, it doesn't surprise me, because in the universities, the education system, again, Rothschild and all them, they're the ones that have started it all. So you've got alpha, so you can be levels of Monarch programming. You've got alpha, so regarded as a general or regular programming within the base control personality. So I'm not going to read it all, but alpha programming is accomplished through deliberately subdividing the victim's personality, which you've just mentioned, which in essence causes a left brain and right brain division, allowing for a programmed union of left and right through neuron pathway stimulation. Wow. So then you've got beta, or beta, BETA, referring to as sexual programming. So the programming eliminates all learnt moral convictions and stimulates the primitive sexual instinct. Delta, this is known as the killer programming, originally developed by training special agents or elite soldiers and covert operations. So if you think military-wise, if you think about these wars, if you think about the Christchurch shooting, and the guy that did that, he was under Delta programming. And they use them as like almost like a scapegoat and to help push, again, the agendas. They also are designed under Delta to self-destruct or suicide instructions are layered in this level. It's very, you've got theta, like these are considered to the psychic programming, the bloodliners, those coming from multi-generation satanic families. So you've got, there's intergenerational, this has been going on for years and years, this satanic, this is all to do with the bloodlines. And as I said, it goes to the Rothschilds, it goes right back. And so, and a lot of it is ancestral to keep the bloodlines pure, kind of like how the royals are. And the royals are a part of all this too, by the way. Then you've got, you've got gamma, another form of system protection, programming for misinformation, misdirection. And basically what happens is with these people, they get programmed, but they have a handler. And that's what a handler is. So a handler could also be someone, so you've got a famous person, say, look, let's look at Chris Brown and Rihanna, whatever the fuck her name is, mind blank. If you look at both of them, they're in a relationship, they were together, blah, blah, blah. One of them was the handler. And they believe that Rihanna was Chris Brown's handler. So it works intertwined into relationships. So that codependency, that person is that person that controls them. Wow. So that they can bring forward.
It makes sense though.
Yeah.
And it's got the cover too, like of how their relationship played out in the media too.
Exactly.
And a lot of them, would you say that the handlers are, they're like managers? And because a lot of these, especially with childhood stars that we've seen that have gone off the rails, like Amanda Bynes, Lindsay Lohan was another one. And I heard, like, because with the Amanda Bynes, because she was a big part of Nickelodeon. Yeah, Disney, it was proven that the guy, one of the big creators of Nickelodeon, I really got to learn these people's names. I'm so bad at remembering it. I'm like this guy, that guy. But he's a big fat guy. Like I can't remember his name, but he was. This last night. Do you know? Are you picturing the same guy I am? Yeah. Like, this is big. Yeah. He really exploited her, is what I've heard, and there was some type of sexual abuse that could have gone on between the two of them, and essentially she went off the rails. Like, she went into juvie, she got into drugs, but a lot of them, essentially get into drugs too, because they're dealing with so much. They're dealing with so much behind the scenes that we don't see. People got to remember that Hollywood is an illusion. They they are the masters and creators, these directors, these movie makers, these writers of the illusion. And essentially, you know, when you look at reality and what's unfolding right now, we're living in the greatest story ever to be told. This is the biggest story in our human history, is, you know, how we essentially woke up to how we've been living, how we've been controlled, you know, because we've given our power away. We've given our power away, and these people have indoctrinated us, they've programmed us through the multiple different medias that we are exposed to throughout our lifetime. And so we've been programmed to think a certain way. We've been programmed, for an example, the whole Trump thing, everyone hated him, including myself. Not everyone, there were, you know, some diehard Trump supporters, but because we've been told by the media, who we've grown up to learn to trust. This is our source of truth. Why would they lie to us?
Exactly.
We were told.
But that goes back to Operation Mockingbird.
Yes.
Which again is another CIA operation.
Yeah.
How do you control the masses? Well, we need to feed them and misdirect them and make them believe this is happening, when really it's propaganda. It's lies. Like, it's not what we've been told. Like, this country went in, this country and invaded it with war. Now there's war. It's like, no, actually, there's a lot more twisted shit that's going on there, but they need to push out a narrative to the world, so the world don't question anything, because who do they trust? Their one source of truth, the news. But the news is fucking bullshit.
Yeah, and when you learn, like a lot of, like I said near the beginning of this podcast, the news, these big corporations are all linked back to owning these media giants, these media moguls throughout the world. They're all handled and reined in, and they can only, they're given the narrative. They're reading off a teleprompter. You know, integrity with the journalism is far gone. You know, there's a few good journalists out there, but a lot of the main ones that we've come to know and trust are pretty much the mouthpiece for, you know, the 1%. And I think that's one of the first things people need to get their head around, is the lies we're being fed. You know, when we see a scientist on TV and the government's telling us, you know, you've got to listen to the scientist because, you know, he's, again, a person of authority. Again, goes back to the indoctrinated, how we've been taught from a young age to look up to authority. So everything, when you dissect it, or they've done a bloody good job at pulling the wool over our eyes. It's so deep. Like, hands down. I know, hands down. Like, your time is up now. Bloody. The gig is up. The gig is up. We are aware of what is happening, and that's what we want to unpack in this episode. We want you to, essentially, I hope we've enticed you to go watch the Outer Shadows documentary. I wrote a lot of notes from it today, but I think if you watched it and then you get back to us and let us know your thoughts, I would love to hear what you're trying to do, because it's so hard to, like, I come on here with high hopes of how I'm going to portray all this information to you, and sometimes it doesn't come across as much, you know, as well as I hope it would. But you know, it's such a big topic, and it's something that would have to do another part too, because, you know, it's so deep, this rabbit hole. But once you go down it, everything starts to connect. And, you know, if we were to just simplify it, we're all getting screwed right now by the same people. You know, humanity is getting screwed over by the same people, and it's up to us to come together and think of solutions of how we're going to get these people out of power. Because essentially all governments need to start afresh. You know, we can't.
That is a good question. How do you get them out of power? And like, the thing is, I think the fear, let go of the fear, because it's scary. Like, if you think about it, like, oh shit, if there's not many of us, then like we're gonna get fucked over, killed, whatever, for standing up. And how are we going to be able to do this? But there's people waking up minute by minute every day. Like, when I started with this kind of stuff, like, there wasn't many.
No.
Really. I know there's people that have been awake for like 20 odd years, and they've been waiting for people like us to catch up. But now, like, then I started seeing it growing to the thousands, and now it's like there's millions around the world that know what the fuck's up. And this is our job. We're here, we're doing this to help awaken or make other people aware, entice people to be like, okay, hang on, maybe I will just go and have a look at it, because that is a big thing. You need to look at it yourself. If you don't look at yourself, and you like, I get kind of, I do get mad at people that haven't bothered to research at all and still attack people like ourselves, because the thing is, the information definitely is out there. And if we provide that information, then it's up to you to go and do your due diligence.
I struggle with saying that word myself.
It's up to you to do that, though, because then you can make your own informed decision. Because we're not here trying to convince you like, hey, this is what's happening, even though I'm saying it's
this is what's happening. Yeah. It's up to you. It's up to you. And I think the Hollywood one is the real twisted one. I think that's the pedophilia, and actually what's happening through these politicians, how they're connected with CIA or high government officials, and how it runs and filters throughout worldwide and into Hollywood. The Hollywood one, it's twisted. It's dark. So like, when you do jump down that rabbit hole, if you're interested, take little steps into it, and get out of the shadow. Make it align. It definitely will align. I'm glad you said that, because it does get quite heavy when you're up, because we can say this quite uncannily now, because we've been going through this for the last couple of years and unraveling the truth. And essentially, like, when I first woke up, I was depressed. I was a mess. I think I lived in my pajamas for 2 days straight, and I just didn't come out of the room, because I was like, what the hell? And my heart goes out to people just waking up and learning this stuff, because it's not easy learning that you've been lied to your entire life, and this is actually what's going on, especially when you learn that we're living in Satan's playground. Like, we're literally everything, that all the powers that be that are in control, they all link back to Satanism. And it sounds crazy and it sounds nuts, and people could watch this and be like, oh my God, these two chicks are off the rails. But like I said, if you do the research and watch that documentary, guys, honestly, and start to unpack things for yourself and use your own discernment, then I'm hoping that we were able to give you the first piece of the puzzle to get the ball rolling for your own awakening, because we want people to catch up. We want to take everyone with us to this new earth, because that's essentially what's happening right now. We are the creators, the movers and the shakers of this new earth that is coming. And it's coming. I'm not fearful anymore, because I know things are happening. Brave people like myself and Alicia are putting ourselves out there on the line and talking about some of this stuff that might sound crazy to you, but we're not the only ones having this conversation. There are other podcasts out there. There are people writing songs about it, and that's essentially what we need to do. We need to reprogram humanity with truth, and that's what I'm hoping. Like, if you watch this and you get inspired to start your own podcast and speak about your truth, that's what I'm hoping people get off their asses and start creating things to wake people up, because essentially that's how we're going to have to do it. We have to reprogram humanity with more positive, enlightened content. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And just for the ones that, this is why we're here. Like, this is
like, we are here because I know that people, when they start finding out this stuff, they're going to go through what we went through. But when we were going through what we went through, we didn't exactly have we didn't have like the support by everyone. Like, you know, we were kind of going through it on our own. Like, I was lucky I had my mum to talk with, you know, this out with, but it was still, I went through a phase. It was hard. Like, I was like, holy shit, like, this is the world we live in. I'm desensitized to it now. I can talk about this like so openly, but this is why we are here. This is why we're doing what we're doing. So, you know, we're here to catch you because we know exactly the process and what it feels like to go through it. And you don't want to be alone. We are here. And like, when you guys do catch up, I mean, fucking take over the show.
Exactly that. And I think that's a nice place to leave it, this episode for this week. Hopefully we haven't confused you guys with, you know, I know we were unpacking quite a bit today, but again, like, we get so passionate when we're talking, and I think one thing pops into my head and then something else pops into my head, and it's like, oh, I've got to say this and say that. So we'll leave it at that for today. And again, like, we will be doing a part 2. It won't be next week because we kind of want to break the topics in between, but there will be a part 2 because, like I said, this is such a deep rabbit hole. We are hoping to get a special guest. I'm not going to mention who, but we have a special guest hopefully lined up that can give testimony to the stuff we're saying. So that will be a great episode too. Fingers crossed for that one. We're manifesting that right now. But we are sending so much love and light to all the viewers today, and we hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thank you all for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
Ka kite.